so that the ship can be leveled and go back into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's quite an experience to see as well. So once again, that is on the port side of the ship or left side of the ship. And for guests that are further back into the ship and are wondering, I can't see it. It is under the railroad, so underneath the concrete structure on the port side of the ship, on that side of the ship, you can see a massive amount of water being dumped from where the Liberty Peace ship is right now back into the Atlantic Ocean, so they can sail out.
smoothie right here. You like some?
It's delicious.
For you? What do we have here? Banana smoothie with mixed berries. Now?
Good.
I'll take one. Yes, sir. Baby, you want
Now,
one?
each transit requires the use of an average of 52 million gallons of fresh water, of which 22 million gallons is released back into the sea, which we just saw on the other side, the other lane, with the Liberty Peace ship. Now, water comes from two reservoirs that also provide drinking water for the Panama's population. Now, the Panama Canal Authority stores as much water as possible during the rainy season, and water-saving basins were built for the new locks that allowed 60% of the water used in each lock to be reused for the next ship's passage. During the expansion process, the capacity of the Gatun Lake was increased by raising the reservoir level by more than 3 feet. Now, and another dam on the upper Chagres River was modified to increase the storage there. But the rainfall continues to decline in some years by as much as 30%, which is attributed to climate change. So there are ongoing technical studies for construction of 3 new reservoirs, and if built, they would be located on the La Villa, the Bayano, and the Indio rivers under the 2015 and 2050 water security plan. Now, they would also be used for irrigation and to boost tourism here. Now, water is the key factor in the whole canal enterprise and always has been, because the water lifts ships up 85 feet above sea level to the surface of the Gatun Lake and floats them across the continental divide and lowers them again to sea level in the opposite ocean. Now, water also serves to generate electrical power for the canal to run the electric motors that open and close the gates, and the valves and the electric locomotives that you see on the port side and the starboard side of the ship as well. Now, for those that are on the starboard side, more specifically on the bow, you can already see water being dumped from one of the chambers to get back onto sea level so that we can sail into the lock, and then they will basically have more water raise us up to the next set of locks. Now, no pumps are used in the Panama Canal, and the water does its work by force of gravity alone. Now, water is admitted or released through giant tunnels, culverts that are 18 feet in diameter, and these culverts, they run lengthwise within the center and the side walls of the locks. Now, branching off at the right angles to these culverts are smaller culverts that run laterally under the floor of each lock chamber. Now, each cross culvert has 5 openings for a total of 100 holes in each chamber for the water to enter or to drain, depending on which valves are opened or closed. This large number of holes distributes the water evenly over the full floor of the area, and this controls the turbulence and makes it a much smoother ride on the ships. Now, to fill a lock, the main valves at the lower end of the chamber are closed, while those are at the upper end, they are opened, and the water pours from the lake through these large culverts into the cross culverts and up through the holes in the chamber floor. Now, to release the water from the lock, the valves at the upper end are closed, while those at the lower end, they are opened, allowing gravity to do all of the hard work without the use of pumps. Now, for those that are looking at the Liberty Peace ship on our port side of the ship, they still have open bridge wings. So on our cruise ship, the Eurodam, we don't have open wings anymore. Basically, we have glass floor on this side, and then we can look beneath what's happening there. But they still have open bridge wings. That means that they have to go out of the bridge, onto the sides, into the open air to see what is going on to the left and the right of the ship.
Oh, it's clearing, then there's another big black.
Now, how expensive is it to transit the Panama Canal? So let's talk about the tolls, because it is not free to use the Panama Canal. Now, ships, they are charged a toll based on their weight, and the average toll for a ship to travel the canal is 150,000 US dollars. But it can get much more expensive for the largest ships and additional surcharges. Now, passenger ships like ours typically make a reservation to guarantee a daytime transit, and the reservation fee alone is 35,000 US dollars. Now, for example, the New Amsterdam and the Rotterdam, they are paying 450,000 US dollars just to transit the canal, nearly $300 per passenger. Now, the cheapest toll ever paid to travel the canal was 36 cents in 1928 by Richard Halliburton, who swam the length of the canal. So yeah, just like us Dutch, just trying to save money. Now you have a chance to go swimming in the canal and stop by the Seaview pool, right, and swim across the Panama Canal. Now sign-ups begin at 1:45, and each participant will get a certificate from myself to take home with you. Just mind yourself about the alligators and crocodiles and whatnot. So yeah, joke of course, but yeah, I do not recommend swimming here. It's not a fun experience. Now, as we are making our way closer to the first gates, you will already start seeing the line handlers on the starboard side of the ship attaching the lines to the ship that will let us stay in place while we are inside the chambers. Like I said earlier, the locomotives, they are not pulling us, they are not moving the ship. They are just there to help us stay in place so that we do not touch either side of the locks. Once again, if you listen very carefully and closely, you can hear the little bells and whistles going off as they communicate with one another.
Excuse us, you're standing in front of us, we can't see. Well, thank you.
Now, these lines that the locomotives have attached to our ship are under an incredible amount of tension. If something goes wrong, you could easily lose one of your fingers, if not all of them, if not your entire hand. So it is extremely dangerous if something goes wrong with those lines. Incredible work though, nonetheless. Now, as the first set of gates is opening in front of our ship at the bow, when we are inside the chamber, it will only take 8 minutes for us to be raised. Now, most of the time in the locks is taken up by the ship being moved forward. By the time it's necessary to close and open the lock gates and all of the other activities that are associated with our lockage. Now, the ship takes about 30 minutes in all to go from one chamber to the next. how do we navigate through the entire canal or even in the locks? Now the ship's pilots have to know all of the curves that they face. They do have navigational aids to assist them, and all the way through, for example, the Gaillard Cut, there is a series of white panels on the hillsides for them to guide on. Now these panels are placed one behind the other, and if the panels are in line, the pilot knows that he is on course. Now there are actually two sets of panels. The ones with the black crosses are used when the ship is to be in the center of the channel, and the ones with only a vertical stripe are to be used when the ship is to be off-center to allow two-way traffic. Now something that's also that can be found here is the Panama Railroad. Now the railroad began full operations in 1855, and it was owned and operated by an American company called the Panama Railway Company. Now the railroad was about 47 miles long and cost 8 million the US dollars to build. Now the railroad became one of the most profitable in the world, and while there were very expensive ongoing maintenance and upgrades, they also charged high prices for carrying freight and passengers. But the good fortunes, they were short-lived, and in 1869, which is 14 years after Panama Railroad began operation, the Golden Spike was tapped into Utah. This was marking the completion of the transcontinental railway that linked the east and west coasts of the United States. Now this new route proved to be a much more attractive way to transport goods and passengers across the country. Now previously, one of the fastest ways to move from one side of the United States to the other was to get on a ship, then sail to Panama, take the railroad across the isthmus, and then get on another ship and sail back to the United States. Now the transcontinental railroad in the United States eliminated the need for all of that extra travel. Now in less than 10 years, stock in the Panama Railway Company went from being the highest priced stock on the New York Stock Exchange to nearly worthless. And by 1877, the company was essentially bankrupt. Now today, in addition to carrying container cargo across the isthmus, the Panama Railway operates as a passenger service. It runs a commuter train from Panama City to Colón each morning and returns each evening. Now it also provides passenger service for excursions, such as those from cruise ships that call in Panama.
dry little corner.
Quiet all over the place. We're paying attention.
Yeah. For about 2 minutes.
Now, as you could already tell, there is a ton of traffic here in this area, in this canal, and ships waiting out, anchored just for their slot, so they can transit through the canal. Now, ships from all parts of the world, they transit daily through this Panama Canal. About 14,000 ships use the canal every year. Now, the Panama Canal serves more than 144 maritime routes connecting 160 countries and reaching some 1,700 ports in the world. And on September the 4th in 2010, the Fortune Plum became the 1 millionth ship to transit the Panama Canal. Now, as I mentioned earlier, before we approach the Panama Canal, it is a dredged channel that extends a long distance from the mainland due to a very gradual shelf that extends into the ocean. Now, lying at anchor out in deep waters will be ships waiting for their scheduled time to make their transit. Now, cruise ships, they know several months in advance when they are scheduled for the canal, so a reservation they can be made for them to pass through on a particular date. Well, like I mentioned, making a reservation, it costs money, and the current fee for a daytime reservation is $35,000 US. Now, cargo ships usually do not know exactly when they will arrive in the canal waters due to varying times for loading and offloading cargo at earlier ports. Now, when they do know their estimated arrival, they radio ahead to be scheduled, and when they arrive, they have to wait for their scheduled time. Now, transit time through the canal is usually 8 to 10 hours, and for the ships that have to wait, their total time in canal waters averages about 24 hours. Now, as with any industry, for the shipping business, time is money. Now, today there are companies that send ships through the canal on a regular basis, and they are very closely controlled the time taken to load and offload their cargoes. Thus, they are able to predetermine a schedule for their first ships to arrive in Panama. Now, they will pay the $35,000 reservation fee rather than have their ship sit and wait for 12 or more hours. So usually if you see a ship coming out, well, that means that it has completed its transit from either the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic or the other way around. Now, typically smaller ships, they are scheduled for nighttime transits.
We're filling up. We're going up. That's going up.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, just raising the water levels or lowering it, it only takes 8 minutes. But all of the things around, the procedures to work around it, it can take about half an hour to go from one lock to another, as you can probably see with the electric locomotives, right? Attaching the lines, tightening the lines, and then keeping the ship in position, maintaining safety. That can take a long time, but the actual raising or lowering the water levels, that only takes 8 minutes.
I think once these doors open, I'm gonna go get dries.
Me too. This is the exciting part, then it's
Yeah. It's repetitive.
the same.
Yeah. I probably get the same view from the balcony on this floor. Joys of digital.
Well, there's a very particular area here in the Panama Canal, and that is the Gold Hill. This is where the continental divide crosses the canal and where the deepest excavations was made. Now, the top of Gold Hill was originally 539 feet above the sea level. Now, the top has twice been cut off to reduce the possibility of the hillside sliding down into the canal. Now, the enormous job of cutting back the face of Gold Hill was accomplished as part of the canal widening project, which was completed in 2001. Now, the stair-steep step face of the hill was done to reduce the possibility of landslides. Now, the gray rectangular shapes on the face of the cut slope are concrete blocks cast onto the hill's face and are anchored by steel rods. Now, this was another measure taken to reduce the possibility of slope failure. Now, interestingly enough, Gold Hill was given that name when the French effort for building a canal was underway. Now, the promoters of the project, they started a rumor that the hill contained enough gold to pay for the entire cost of building the Panama Canal. Now, this enticed many investors to buy the French construction bonds. However, there was never an ounce of gold found. Now, it is quite crazy to think about that it has already been pretty much 3 years since the world got acquainted with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, some of the real information about its spread really started to gain traction in January 2020, but in March, the world would really start to close and lock down. Now, here in this canal, in this lock that you find yourself in right now, you will find a much more recent piece of history. Now, in 2020, most ships of our fleet had already disembarked guests, and they were able to fly them home to their homes. Now, many cruises, they ended abruptly, and that was that basically, right? People were home, except for one of our ships. Now, one of our ships was forced to travel along the entire west coast of South America, looking for a place to disembark guests and crew to get them to their homes. Now, that ship was met with local population throwing rocks towards the ship. It was refused multiple times, even though much transportation had been organized in those areas. So the captain of that ship decided that he would take its ship and its passengers and crew back to Fort Lauderdale. It would, however, have to cross through the Panama Canal to get there. Now, we've already seen her earlier today. The Zaandam, it was COVID struck, and team members, they fell in pairs as many shared cabins. And the Rotterdam 6, which is now sailing for Fred Olsen Cruises, was sent out to meet the Zaandam to bring supplies and new crew to help out, and which they did. Now, the local population of Panama had taken notice to these two 6 ships, quote unquote, that were anchored outside, and they didn't really want the ships to go through the locks. However, it was agreed that the ships were going to transit through the canal, but to not upset the local population, they had to slip by secretly. So all of the lights of both ships were turned off and curtains were closed. Now, because of the sensitive nature of the operation, the ships went through the canal in record time during the nighttime. Now, it was rumored that the canal pilots had been promised a hefty reward for this dangerous task, that they had to quarantine for a month and burned all of their clothes and belongings that they had on them upon disembarking from the Zaandam and the Rotterdam. This rumor is false. In fact, the pilots volunteered to do the work for free. Now, how do you know this? How do I know this information? Well, I asked them a couple cruises ago when the pilot was on board. So they simply responded to 2 ships in distress and did what they thought was right. Just to outline what that means, the pilots had to come on board in hazmat suits, navigate through the canal in darkness, no breaks for foods or toilets. So where you're standing now on our decks, looking at this marvel of engineering that is the Panama Canal, it is also a strange thought that you are now in the exact same spot as those 2 ships almost 3 years ago. So speaking as a team member that was on board the Zaandam during that time, and I think I can speak for some of our guests that are here with us on this voyage as well, that were also here 3 years ago. Thank you, Panama Canal pilots.
Thank you.
contacting you on your film.
No, too many passengers keep sticking their head in my screen.
Now, later, when we go back into the Atlantic Ocean, as we will exit on our way out, we will pass by the port of Cristobal, which is the Spanish for Christopher, and around that bend is Colón, which is Spanish for Columbus. Now, Colón is the Atlantic terminus of the Panama Railroad, and after completion of the railway in 1855, Colón overshadowed the older Caribbean ports of Panama, and with the first plans for the Isthmian Canal, it took on the additional prestige. Now, the great port works and docks were built by the United States in the former canal zone, now essentially a suburb, and helped keep Colón as one of the most important ports of the Caribbean Sea. Now, Colón is also a major commercial center, and it was made a free trade zone in 1953, and is one of the world's largest duty-free ports. Now, if we take a good look at the Gatun locks, which bring ships back into the Atlantic Ocean, the lowest lock chamber has to wait for the water level to be lowered and look ahead to see the water being released. Now, like I said earlier, it rushes out underneath the ramp used by the locomotives and back into the ocean. What you might have seen already is seeing 26 million gallons of water being dumped into the ocean, and the same amount was used in lifting our ship up to get to Gatun Lake. Now, a total of 52 million gallons of water is used for each ship's transit. So why is all of this water just dumped into the ocean, and why is it not circulated back into Lake Gatun? Now, to do this would require the installation of very costly pumps. Aside from the enormous cost factor, there is also another very significant consideration here. The water of Gatun Lake has to be kept as fresh water because it serves as the domestic water supply for the several towns in the area. Now, circulating water back into the lake would introduce salt into the system, and that is unacceptable. Now, this is why the new locks at the reservoirs, that they reuse 60% of the water, is such a great improvement. Now, as we leave the lowest lock, right on our way back, to take a look at the swing gate tucked back underneath the locomotive ramp. So everyone that has missed it, you will see it on the way out again. Now, the bridge was originally built for use only by canal maintenance vehicles. However, with private development now being allowed in what used to be canal zone, a lot of cars, trucks and buses had to use the bridge. But in recent time, with the construction of the new bridge, the swing bridge is closed most of the time and you have to take a ferry across. Now, later on when we leave the Gatun Lakes, we will head down to the ship's channel towards Limon Bay. And as we're in the channel, we can then look on the port side and see a portion of the channel dug by the French effort back in the 1880s, which I pointed out earlier this morning, which is a much narrower than the canal created by the later American project. And a little further along, you would also be able to see on the starboard side the new lock of Agua Clara. Now we are coming to the final stages of transiting the canal, just waiting for the water to basically lift us up into the next step of elevation and to get us into Gatun Lake. So only 2 more passes and then we should be good to go. Now today we have traveled through history and through marvel of engineering. The Panama Canal is considered to be one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. and still operates very much how it used to when it opened in 1914. Now I hope that you've enjoyed it because it was a trip back in time, but also a trip that shows us what is possible in the future. Panama Canal united the world and continues to do so today. And also for a more personal experience, it's a little painful reminder of what happened 3 years ago, but also joyous that we can sail through it once more. So thank you for joining us on this journey through the Panama Canal. This was your cruise and travel director, Chaling, and my scenic narration has now concluded. I hope that you take in the beautiful views here, really appreciate all what is going on here, every single person here in this Panama Canal doing its job, its respective job to basically make this all possible. And it could be anything from a line handler, it could be a pilot on a ship, it could even be naturalists in the forests, it could be balanqueros, right? It could be oceanographers, hydrologists keeping the water lines in check. But really I hope that you've really enjoyed it. But before I leave, there's a little important information I would share with you about your shore excursions. So if you have a shore excursion booked, please listen very carefully to the upcoming announcements about your meeting time and place, because we are a little bit cramped on time. We want to make it as fluid as possible so that you can really maximize your trip here in Panama. So when you want to go ashore to your shore excursions, double check the meeting time, double check the place. Make sure that you have your ship security card with you, your station key cards, and all of the necessities that you need to bring with you so that you're ready to go, ready to rock and roll and have fun in Panama. That is all for now. Thank you so much for your attention and enjoy the rest of your day.
It's behind the building.
Oh, it's behind the building?
I got a close up of it before it went out of sight.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's exciting. There's this. Don't have a FM on it.
Fast forward.
I was afraid that you guys on your balcony wouldn't be able to see. And
Well, thank you.
and
Yeah.
I knew that with things going on each side, I would probably miss a lot.
There is no voice.
This is a great spot on the way back.
I have an hour and 15 minutes on here. So you can see a lot and hear a lot.
What what we can do is let you guys
I can
sit.
upload it to YouTube.
If you guys want to do that, come back to it. Well, we're all coming back to it, aren't we? Yeah, we can use our yeah, if Mom wants to do that. The first lot coming in, it was jam-packed. It was raining. The Rotter, the cruise ship, the Rotter. There was, yeah. You can see the 3 ships. So
Babe, look out here. There's
Norwegian Bliss.
the Norwegian Bliss is in view.
I tell you what, this week I said I do. What a great experience to have this maybe Mark Perry. Okay, they're getting ready to open the gates. That side's down. There goes the other side.
It was just,
Yeah, what's the seating? Doesn't it? It looks like we're lower than that. I don't see why we want to pitch that. What do you mean? This is the lake. Yeah, this front one here. So that building there was built in 1913? Taking up the slack. Water.
No, this is the industrial person. This is the real deal here.
dude.
Oh, you're fine. Mm-hmm. See, there's the next ship that's going to come in. Looks like the water levels are about even. They should start opening the gate. It's opening.
Oh, the outside gate's opening up.
Yep.
There goes the rails.
Yep. He could.
Especially as you get older.
That's how we made it to Canton Lake through Panama Canal on the Eurodam in January of 2023.